I want you to get together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Nephilim Look Like Clowns. Now, today I want to try and answer an age old question which has kind of been bandied at me ever since I started this series, and it's what is the origin of the red nose? What does it mean exactly in terms of symbolism when we're talking about a clown and its relations to the Nephilim? Now, I've theorized at the start of this series. And I say theorize because I don't actually know fully just what the red nose symbolized, but I do have some ideas. So I've theorized that the red nose initially may have been present on the Nephilim, along with a wide red covered lipped mouth, because they were cannibalistic in nature, eating one another and also eating humans. Which I suppose, in a way, if they're eating humans, doesn't make them cannibalistic because they aren't human themselves. But I do understood that they basically ate anything that walked, including probably their own children, the Nephilim and the Leo, as they were called. But other than that, that one theory that they were so covered in blood on their face that it would look like their nose was red, as it had been dipped into the carcass. And this seems to be the most popular theory people have latched onto who probably haven't watched my videos fully, get an idea, and then they say what I just said in the comment sections, probably not realizing I've already theorized it, but it seems to be the go-to for most people to assume that's probably what the red nose symbolizes then. But people have been asking me in the Telegram chat recently, well, why is it round? Why is it this bulbous round nose? And it would be pertinent to mention that obviously Red Nose Day is a huge thing in the UK and I think in Canada as well, which is done for comic relief. It's a charity for children's hospitals and for children starving all around the world, things like that. Once a year, it's a ritual we put on in these countries where people in society dress up like a clown and put on a red nose. And to buy the red nose, you put £1 in a pot. You donate to the charity. But basically, this whole ritual has got everybody dressing like the Nephilim once a year. Which is essentially a huge invocation ritual from my research perspective. But the clown nose is a big deal. It must mean something. Now, as my research has developed, I've kind of moved away from the idea that the red nose represents blood, external blood, shall we say, staining the tip of the nose. Um, I'm more inclined now to believe that it may have been a literal physical feature of the Nephilim. So my research has uncovered, for example, the Wangina entities of Australian folklore. Now, the Wanginas are rain and thunder gods that were created by rainbow serpent gods. They're the offspring of the serpent gods. So basically, they are the offspring of the seraphim fallen angels. They are Nephilim. And the Wanginas, as painted on these rock paintings, though there's many variations, they seem to have a red light halo that looks like a clown wig, porcelain white skin like clown makeup, big bright blue glowing eyes like clown makeup is often portrayed, and also a big red or bulbous nose. So it does seem like these things did have the typical clown nose as showed on this image I'm showing on the screen now. So there's that one reason that made me consider this may have been a literal feature. But then there's also the Tengu, a particular demon from Japan, which has a big, long, red nose. And the big, wide, serpentine grin feature as well, and the ability to fly. It also has animistic legs like an eagle. It's a human animal demonic angel hybrid thing. It's basically a Nephilim creature of some kind with a long red nose. So there we go. And also from my recent research into the tribes of Papua New Guinea, these photos have emerged which show that these tribes who venerate the Nephilim, or as they call them, ancestor spirits, by putting red paint on the tip of their nose in many variations, along with white polka dot patterns as well. And they typically, as well, white up the skin with powder of some kind or some kind of white paint. And this is a practice all over the place. It's not just in Papua New Guinea, it's also, it's in Africa, it's in North America, South America, within Europe as well, when representing the wild man. It's the commonalities in the motifs across all cultures when venerating their ancestor spirits lean towards stereotypical clown. Although like I said, there's many variations. And the red nose motif does crop up a lot, which is making me believe, this may have been a literal feature, because they are dressing like the entities to evoke the entities. So they would, of course, have to use features that were literal, in a sense, from the original entity, which is now a spirit. So the red nose, I believe now, was quite literal. So maybe there's another explanation as to why the Nephilim would have had red noses. It just seems like a bizarre thing, doesn't it? But it turns out human beings have an issue, particularly pale human beings. And there's this thing, if you haven't heard of it, called the Curse of the Celts. Now, the term Curse of the Celts is something in regards to a thing called rosacea. It's typical that it occurs in the people of Celtic origin, and the common misconception that excessive blood alcohol intake is the basis for this problem is a myth. It's actually something that people just have as an issue. Now, rosacea, if you don't know, is basically an affliction that causes the cheeks to flush incredibly red and the forehead. It causes blotchy patches all over the skin of spots and blisters and red patches, not dissimilar from, let's say, polka dots, as we see on a clown. But along with these red splotches and a bright red blood-filled nose, it can also develop into something much worse. Okay, so there's this thing called, if I can pronounce this, rhinophyma. It's a skin disorder that causes the nose to enlarge and become red, bumpy, and bulbous, not dissimilar from a stereotypical clown nose. It's thought that it's a result from untreated, severe rosacea, which is a chronic, inflammatory skin condition that causes facial redness on the nose and the cheeks. Now, this isn't to say all white people are descendants of Nephilim. Get that racial idea out of your mind. It's nothing to do with that. These creatures, the Nephilim, were not human. Not in any sense of the imagination. They were something else. Their countenance by Josephus, a first century Jewish historian, described them as nothing like man at all, when he was referencing the skeletons of the Nephilim that were still on show even during his time. He describes the way they looked as unlike anything he's seen before. They just had such odd shapes, okay? These aren't humans. But as I described in my previous video about the mark of Cain, possibly being a mark of extreme, sickly, ivory porcelain whiteness, like a leper, like powder. It seems that if the Nephilim are the offspring of Cain's daughters who bore this white mark, along with the fallen angels who were reptilian in nature, the offspring, the Nephilim, also had this chalky, incredibly pale complexion. Okay? Now, if this is the curse of the Celts, who are known to be quite pale people, and it also seems to be an issue of hemochromatosis, which is basically having a lot of iron in the blood that can't be processed properly due to a gene defect. And obviously this faulty gene, this issue that pale people seem to have, red nose as well, and in extreme cases, a bulbous, round nose like a clown nose. So is this just an issue that people who have pale skin seem to develop? And if the Nephilim had sickly, deathly, white, powdery skin, so not like a Caucasian person who has some orange and a bit of pink and a bit of, peach in there. I'm talking vampire death white. If they had the whitest skin, were they also incredibly prone to this specific defect called rosacea, where red blotches and patterns would appear on the face and all over the body? Let's say like polka dots, which is often associated again with the image of a clown, and did the Nephilim in their extreme forms, some of them who really went hard with this rosacea defect, which pale people are prone to, as like I said, it's the curse of the Celts as it's referred to, did the Nephilim therefore develop huge bulbous noses filled with blood? And the cure for these bulbous noses, which, like I said, they don't really know what causes it, but they're assuming it's something to do with rosacea. The cure is to basically slice it all off and reshape the nose. It has to be surgically removed, basically. So it's just an interesting thought. Could this be another reason as to why these entities are often depicted with a red nose, and why we have created in the West our own version of the ancestor spirits we call a clown as a costume, which has the bulbous red nose? Is this the link? Is it not simply, eating the flesh and getting a stain on the outside of your nose, which is red? Which I was never happy with that theory from the beginning. It did always seem just a bit too simplistic. And I just also found it interesting that they called this, the curse of the Celts. And Celtic mythology is rife with the Tuatha De Danann and the Fomorians. And the Tuatha De Danann were a incredibly beautiful, godlike, pale-skinned, red-haired race, and had clownish features themselves. But yeah, guys, the origin of the red nose. Could it be that the Nephilim simply had an extremely bad case of rosacea, developing into a rhinophyma, which is the most extreme form of rosacea, which gave them a large red bulbous nose and red polka dot style splotchy patches all over their skin? Food for thought. I'll leave that there for now, and I'll be back with more videos soon. Thanks for listening, guys, and as always, God bless.
I want you to get together.